Marcus Johnson stepped through the heavy wooden doors of courtroom 302. The room smelled like old books and furniture polish. Rows of people sat watching as Marcus walked forward. His shoes, slightly scuffed but polished, clicked softly on the floor. Judge Kim sat high above everyone else. His face was stern, with deep lines around his mouth from years of frowning. His black robe made him look like a bird of prey waiting to strike. "Next case," called the clerk. Sunwoo Development versus the residents of Oakwood Heights. Marcus placed his worn leather briefcase on the table. "Marcus Johnson representing the residents, Your Honor." Judge Kim looked up from his papers. His eyes narrowed as he studied Marcus. "You're representing 15 families in an eviction case worth millions? Where is their actual lawyer?" "I am their lawyer, Your Honor," Marcus replied politely. Judge Kim leaned forward. "You look like you just graduated. How many cases have you tried before my court?" "This is my first appearance before you, Your Honor." Several people in expensive suits at the other table smirked and whispered. Their leader, Mr. Tay, stood up. His suit probably cost more than Marcus earned in 3 months. "Your Honor, I request we proceed quickly. My client has already been patient with these tenants. Mr. Johnson's inexperience shouldn't further delay justice." Judge Kim nodded. "I agree. Mr. Johnson, I hope you're actually prepared." Marcus opened his briefcase. Several papers slipped out and scattered across the floor. Someone in the courtroom laughed. Marcus calmly picked them up. "I apologize, Your Honor. I am prepared." The judge sighed loudly. "Let's hope so. Mr. Tay, please begin." Mr. Tay spent the next 30 minutes talking about contracts, property values, and development plans. He showed glossy pictures of beautiful buildings that would replace the eyesore where Marcus's clients lived. These residents sign leases that clearly allow termination with proper notice, Mr. Tay concluded. Notice was given. They must vacate. "Thank you, Mr. Tay," Judge Kim said warmly. "Very thorough." He turned to Marcus with a cooler expression. "Your response?" Marcus stood. His tie was slightly crooked, but his eyes were clear and focused. "Your Honor, my clients have lived in their homes for generations. The developer's notice wasn't proper under City Housing Code Section 47B. That section was amended last year," Judge Kim interrupted. "Surely you know that?" "Yes, Your Honor. I'm referring to the amended version which requires." "I know what it requires," Judge Kim snapped. "I helped draft those amendments before I was appointed to the bench. Then you'll recall that Section 47B, Paragraph 3 specifically states that residents must receive clear written notice with translation options for non-English speakers. My clients, including Mrs. Lim, who has lived there for 50 years, never received Korean translations." Mr. Tay jumped up. "Your Honor, that's a minor technical." "Is it minor, Mr. Tay?" Marcus asked, his voice stronger now. "The law doesn't think so. Neither do my clients who couldn't understand why they were being forced from their homes." Judge Kim frowned. "Mr. Johnson, don't interrupt opposing counsel." "I apologize, Your Honor," Marcus said, but he didn't look sorry. Mr. Tay smiled. "As I was saying, we substantially complied with notice requirements." "Substantially isn't the standard," Marcus replied. "The law requires actual compliance." Judge Kim tapped his pen impatiently. "Mr. Johnson, I've heard enough about notice requirements. Do you have actual legal arguments against this development?" Marcus opened a folder. "Yes, Your Honor. I have several." For the next 20 minutes, Marcus cited cases, statutes, and legal principles. The smiles faded from the developers' faces. Judge Kim's frown deepened. Furthermore, Marcus continued, "In the case of Park versus Downtown Developers, which you yourself decided 3 years ago, Your Honor, you ruled that." "I know what I ruled," Judge Kim interrupted. He studied Marcus more carefully now. "You've certainly done your homework on my decisions. I believe in being prepared, Your Honor. A woman sitting in the back row watched with interest. She was Mrs. Lim, one of the oldest residents facing eviction. She didn't understand all the legal talk, but she understood that this young man was fighting hard for her home. As the hearing continued, something changed in the courtroom. Judge Kim stopped interrupting Marcus so much. Mr. Tay's confident smile disappeared. The courtroom spectators leaned forward to listen. We will continue this hearing tomorrow, Judge Kim finally announced. Mr. Johnson, I expect you to be on time and better organized. Yes, Your Honor, Marcus replied. As people filed out, Mrs. Lim approached Marcus. Thank you for fighting for us, she said in broken English. Marcus smiled. We're just getting started. Marcus walked quickly through the evening rain to his hotel. His cheap suit was damp by the time he reached the lobby. The desk clerk nodded to him as he passed. Marcus looked like just another struggling young lawyer trying to make his mark. Inside his room, Marcus changed into dry clothes. He took out his phone and made a call. Director Sung, it's me, he said when someone answered. Dr. Johnson, how did it go today? Director Sung's voice was deep and serious. Exactly as we expected. Judge Kim dismissed me immediately. He showed clear bias against me and the residents. Marcus opened his laptop and connected a small recording device from his pocket. The screen showed video of the courtroom from his perspective. I recorded everything. Judge Kim interrupted me 17 times but only stopped Mr. Tay twice. He also made 3 comments about my appearance and suggested I wasn't qualified. Excellent work, Director Sung said. The Judicial Review Board needs clear evidence like this. Judge Kim has been getting away with this behavior for years. Marcus rubbed his eyes. I didn't expect it to be so exhausting, playing this role. It can't be easy for someone with your credentials to be treated like a novice. Marcus laughed softly. That's an understatement. After ending the call, Marcus opened a hidden compartment in his briefcase. Inside was his real identification, Dr. Marcus Johnson, Ph.D., J.D. Special Investigator for the Federal Judicial Ethics Committee. Former Supreme Court Clerk. Author of 3 books on constitutional law. There was also a photograph of a younger Marcus standing beside Judge Kim at a legal conference 5 years ago. Judge Kim had no idea they had met before. Marcus pinned the photograph to a small board on the hotel wall. Next to it he placed newspaper clippings about cases where Judge Kim had ruled against minority communities and in favor of wealthy developers. A knock at the door made Marcus quickly cover his work. He opened the door to find Mrs. Lim holding a container. Food, she said simply. You fight for us. We take care of you. Thank you, Mrs. Lim, Marcus said with genuine warmth. Please come in. The old woman entered and looked around the simple room. You are not what you seem, she said suddenly in Korean. Marcus answered in perfect Korean, surprising her. What do you mean? Mrs. Lim smiled. Your eyes. Too smart for a young lawyer. You speak like student but think like teacher. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. You're very observant, Mrs. Lim. Why you pretend? She asked. Marcus considered his answer carefully. Sometimes the truth only comes out when people don't know they're being watched. Mrs. Lim nodded. Judge Kim. Bad man. Thinks money more important than people. That's what I'm trying to prove, Marcus admitted. Mrs. Lim looked at the wall where his credentials were partially visible. She didn't comment on them. My grandson Park is lawyer too, she said instead. He wants to help but his boss says no. Boss is friend with Judge Kim. This was new information. Marcus took out a notebook. Would your grandson be willing to talk to me? Mrs. Lim looked worried. Dangerous for his job. I understand. I won't put him at risk. Mrs. Lim stood to leave. I tell no one who you are. But you will win, yes? We keep our homes? I'll do everything I can, Marcus promised. After she left, Marcus returned to his work. He prepared documents for tomorrow's hearing while eating Mrs. Lim's delicious food. Later, his phone rang again. It was Professor Lee, his former teacher from law school. Marcus, I just heard you're in town. Why didn't you tell me you were coming? I'm here unofficially, Marcus explained. I'm investigating Judge Kim. Professor Lee was silent for a moment. Be careful. He has powerful friends. I know. That's why I'm pretending to be an inexperienced lawyer. He shows his true colors when he thinks he's dealing with someone he can bully. Smart strategy, Professor Lee said. But what happens when he discovers who you really are? That's part of the plan, Marcus said. But not yet. First, I need more evidence. After they hung up, Marcus looked at his reflection in the mirror. Tomorrow he would put on his slightly ill-fitting suit again. He would carry his scuffed briefcase. He would play the role of an eager but nervous young lawyer. But inside, he was Dr. Marcus Johnson, one of the most respected legal minds in the country. And Judge Kim was about to learn that appearances can be deceiving. Marcus turned off the light and went to bed. Tomorrow would be day 2 of the hearing. Judge Kim was expecting a stumbling novice. He was going to get something entirely different. The courtroom was fuller than the day before. Word had spread about the interesting case with the young lawyer fighting against the big developer. Marcus noticed law students, reporters, and curious locals filling the seats. Judge Kim entered and everyone stood. Be seated, he said, his voice gruff. He looked at Marcus with slight annoyance. Mr. Johnson, I hope you're better prepared today. Yes, Your Honor, Marcus replied quietly. Mr. Tay from Sunwoo Development looked confident. He stood with a thick folder of documents. Your Honor, I'd like to present these new affidavits showing the properties in question need extensive repairs. It would be cheaper to demolish them than fix them. Objection, Marcus said, standing. These documents weren't shared with me before court. Judge Kim frowned. Mr. Johnson, this isn't a trial. This is a hearing. Objections aren't necessary. With respect, Your Honor, basic rules of discovery still apply in eviction hearings. The Choi vs. Day One Properties case established that in 2017. Judge Kim paused, his eyes narrowing slightly. You're familiar with that case? Yes, Your Honor. It was your ruling, after all. A murmur went through the courtroom. Judge Kim rarely had his own cases cited back to him by young lawyers. Very well, Judge Kim said. Mr. Tay, please ensure Mr. Johnson receives copies of all documents. Mr. Tay looked surprised but nodded. Marcus then called his first witness, a building inspector named Mr. Park. The man looked nervous as he took the stand. Mr. Park, did you inspect the buildings in Oakwood Heights? Marcus asked. Yes, 3 times in the past 2 years. And what did you find? The buildings need repairs but are structurally sound. Not dangerous to live in. Mr. Tay stood quickly. Your Honor, this contradicts our expert's report. Let me finish questioning my witness, Marcus said firmly. Judge Kim looked at Marcus with new interest. Continue, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Park, did anyone from Sunwoo Development contact you about your inspection reports? The inspector looked uncomfortable. Mr. Tay called me. He asked me to change some details in my report. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Mr. Tay's face turned red. That's a lie, he shouted. Is it? Marcus asked calmly. He pulled out a small recorder. Your Honor, I'd like to submit this recording of a conversation between Mr. Park and Mr. Tay. Judge Kim looked shocked. Mr. Johnson, recordings made without consent are not admissible. In criminal cases, that's true, Marcus replied. But in civil matters related to public safety, South Korea's Supreme Court ruled in the Han case last year that such recordings are admissible when there's a compelling public interest. Judge Kim stared at Marcus. You're citing case law from the Supreme Court now? Just doing my homework, Your Honor, Marcus said with a small smile. During the lunch break, Marcus sat alone reviewing his notes. A young woman approached him. Excuse me, she said. I'm Jean from City Law Journal. Are you really just out of law school? You know case law like a professor. Marcus smiled politely. I just work hard for my clients. When court resumed, Marcus cross-examined Sunwoo Development's financial expert. Mr. Min, you stated these properties are worth less than the land they sit on. Is that correct? Yes, that's my professional opinion, Mr. Min replied confidently. Are you aware that Sunwoo Development has already pre-sold condos for the site at prices totaling 4 times what they're offering residents? Mr. Min looked startled. I wasn't aware of that. Marcus showed a document to the judge. Your Honor, these are the pre-sale contracts Sunwoo has already signed. They stand to make enormous profits while displacing families who have lived here for generations. Judge Kim studied the papers carefully. The courtroom was silent. Mr. Tae, Judge Kim said finally, were you planning to share this information with the court? Mr. Tae looked flustered. These business matters aren't relevant to the eviction proceedings. I disagree, Judge Kim said, surprising everyone. They speak to the motivation behind these evictions and the fairness of the compensation offered. Marcus watched Judge Kim carefully. Something was changing. The judge who had dismissed him yesterday was now listening intently to his arguments. As the hearing continued, Marcus cited more legal precedents. He quoted from academic papers. At one point, he even corrected Judge Kim on a point of property law. Instead of getting angry, Judge Kim seemed thoughtful. He studied Marcus with increasing interest. When the day ended, Judge Kim made an announcement. We will continue tomorrow with final arguments. I want both sides prepared to discuss fair compensation options should this development proceed. As Marcus packed his briefcase, he noticed Judge Kim watching him. The judge's expression was no longer dismissive. It was curious, perhaps even a little concerned. Marcus walked out of the courtroom knowing that tomorrow would be the day everything changed. Judge Kim was beginning to suspect that Marcus Johnson was not who he appeared to be. The courtroom was packed for the third day of hearings. People stood along the walls because all seats were taken. Reporters sat in the front row with notebooks ready. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next in the case that had become the talk of the city. Marcus arrived early. He wore the same slightly worn suit but stood straighter today. The nervous energy he had shown on the first day was gone. He arranged his papers calmly at the table. Mr. Tae and his team of lawyers huddled together, whispering urgently. They kept looking at Marcus with worried expressions. Judge Kim entered and surveyed the crowded room. His eyes lingered on Marcus for a moment longer than usual. Before we begin final arguments, Judge Kim announced, I have some questions for Mr. Johnson. Marcus stood. Yes, Your Honor? Yesterday you cited several legal precedents that even experienced attorneys might not know. You quoted from a legal journal article that was published only last month. I find myself curious about your background. The courtroom went silent. Marcus could feel everyone watching him. What exactly would you like to know, Your Honor? Where did you attend law school, Mr. Johnson? Marcus smiled slightly. Harvard Law School, Your Honor. Whispers spread through the courtroom. And when did you graduate? Judge Kim pressed. 15 years ago, Marcus replied calmly. Top of my class. The whispers grew louder. Judge Kim tapped his gavel. Mr. Johnson, are you telling this court that you've been practicing law for 15 years? Yet you introduced yourself as if you were new to this courtroom. I said this was my first appearance before you, Your Honor. That was true. Judge Kim's eyes narrowed. Who are you really, Mr. Johnson? Marcus took a deep breath. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out his credentials. He placed them on the table where Judge Kim could see them. My name is Dr. Marcus Johnson. I hold a doctorate in law from Harvard and a PhD in judicial ethics from Yale. I've argued before the Supreme Court 9 times. I've written 3 books on constitutional law. The courtroom erupted. Judge Kim pounded his gavel repeatedly. Order! I will have order. When quiet returned, Judge Kim looked stunned. Dr. Johnson. I believe we met at a legal conference 5 years ago. We did, Your Honor. You wouldn't remember me, but I remember you clearly. Why this deception? Judge Kim demanded. Marcus walked toward the bench. I'm here as part of an official investigation by the Federal Judicial Ethics Committee. Another wave of gasps filled the room. Mr. Tay looked like he might faint. For the past year, Marcus continued, we've been reviewing cases where bias may have affected judicial outcomes. Your courtroom showed some concerning patterns. Marcus turned to face the audience. When wealthy developers face poor residents, the developers win 97% of the time in this court. When white-collar defendants face charges, they receive sentences averaging 40% lighter than others charged with similar crimes. Judge Kim's face had turned pale. These are serious accusations. They are, Marcus agreed. That's why I came myself. I needed to see if you would treat a young black lawyer differently than you treat the expensive suits who regularly appear before you. And your conclusion? Judge Kim asked quietly. The evidence speaks for itself, Marcus replied. My recorder captured everything from your dismissive comments on day 1 to your change in attitude yesterday when you realized I might know more than you thought. Marcus turned to the residents sitting in the courtroom. These families deserve justice based on law, not based on who has the most expensive lawyer. Mrs. Lim stood up from her seat. He speaks truth. Judge always favor rich people. Others began standing in shouting agreement. Judge Kim pounded his gavel again. Silence. This is still my courtroom. When order returned, Judge Kim looked directly at Marcus. Dr. Johnson, I assume your investigation will result in a formal report? Yes, Your Honor. But what happens next depends partly on you. Judge Kim was silent for a long moment. The entire courtroom waited. Finally, the judge spoke. Mr. Tay, your eviction notices are hereby invalidated. Sunwoo Development must negotiate fair compensation with each resident based on the actual market value of the replacement properties. Mr. Tay jumped to his feet. Your Honor, you can't. I can and I have, Judge Kim interrupted. And if you attempt to pressure any residents or witnesses, I will refer you to the Bar Association for ethics violations. Judge Kim then turned back to Marcus. Dr. Johnson, I request 2 weeks to review all my recent rulings and prepare a response to your investigation. Marcus nodded. That's reasonable, Your Honor. As Marcus packed his briefcase, reporters rushed forward with questions. Mrs. Lim approached him with tears in her eyes. You saved our homes, she said, taking his hand. The law saved your homes, Marcus corrected gently. Today, at least, it worked the way it should. In the quiet town of Millbrook, a young woman named Elena Rodriguez stood at a crossroads of her life. Years of witnessing injustice in her community had transformed her from a timid social worker into a passionate advocate for change. Her journey wasn't about grand speeches or dramatic confrontations, but about small, meaningful actions that could reshape people's lives. Elena remembered the moment everything shifted. It was during a late-night community meeting in the local community center, where forgotten voices gathered to discuss their struggles. An elderly man named Carlos shared his story of fighting deportation, his voice trembling but determined. His narrative wasn't just about legal battles, it was about human dignity, about belonging, about hope. She began by organizing small support groups for immigrant families facing legal challenges. With limited resources but unlimited compassion, Elena helped parents navigate complex legal systems, connected families with pro bono lawyers, and created a network of support that felt like extended family. Her approach was gentle but persistent, understanding that justice isn't just about winning cases, but about preserving human connections. The local authorities initially viewed her efforts with suspicion. They saw her as a troublemaker, someone disrupting the established order. But Elena remained calm and strategic. She documented every case, built relationships with sympathetic lawyers, and slowly created a system of support that became impossible to ignore. One particular case changed everything. Maria, a single mother of 3, was facing potential deportation. Elena spent weeks gathering evidence, connecting Maria with legal resources, and rallying community support. When Maria's case was finally heard, the judge was moved not just by the legal arguments, but by the visible community support Elena had organized. The victory was more than a legal win. It represented a shift in how the community understood justice. People began to see that supporting each other wasn't just a moral choice, but a collective strength. Elena's work showed that transformation happens through small, consistent actions of care and solidarity. Her methods weren't dramatic. She didn't give fiery speeches or stage massive protests. Instead, she listened. She connected. She understood that real change happens in conversations over kitchen tables, in community centers, in quiet moments of shared understanding. As months passed, Elena's network grew. More volunteers joined her efforts. They created language classes for immigrants, legal support workshops, and mental health resources. Each program was built on the fundamental belief that every person deserves respect, regardless of their legal status. The local government, initially resistant, started to recognize the value of her work. They began collaborating, seeing that supporting immigrant communities meant stronger, more integrated neighborhoods. Elena's approach proved that justice isn't about winning against someone, but about creating systems where everyone can thrive. Her personal transformation was equally significant. The young woman who once felt powerless now understood her own strength. She realized that justice isn't a destination, but a continuous journey of understanding, compassion, and collective action. By her mid-30s, Elena had become a quiet force in Millbrook. Her work had helped dozens of families find stability, hope, and a sense of belonging. She hadn't changed the entire world, but she had significantly changed her corner of it. The community began to see her not as an outsider or a troublemaker, but as a bridge builder. Immigrants and longtime residents alike respected her commitment, her integrity, and her unwavering belief in human dignity. Elena's story wasn't about grand heroics. It was about persistent, compassionate action. She showed that true transformation happens when individuals decide to care deeply, listen carefully, and act consistently. Her life became a testament to the power of quiet courage, of believing that every small action matters. In Millbrook, Elena Rodriguez had become more than a social worker. She was a symbol of hope, a reminder that justice is built not through grand gestures, but through everyday acts of human kindness and understanding. Her journey continued, one family, one story, one connection at a time.